Okay, well, hi everyone, welcome. Thank you very much for coming. My name's Riemer. I'm from the English and Linguistics departments here, and also with my colleague Julianne Robson, I chair the campaign committee of the NTEU branch here. And before we go any further, I would like to just acknowledge that we're meeting here today, obviously on the Gadigal land of the Gadigal land of the Eora Nation, and we acknowledge that and pay respects to their elders past and present. Okay, so the impetus for this series, which is today is the first seminar of a series of two seminars and one workshop, which is being held in the wake of Raymond Connell's occasional lecture that the NTEU sponsored last week. The impetus for this initiative comes obviously from the fact that the University of Sydney is currently experiencing the strongest and most intense industrial dispute that an Australian campus has had for many years. And it's one which shows no sign of abating. And we thought that there was a real need for a space of reflection on the state of universities in general and about the University of Sydney in particular, not as a substitute for the kinds of resistance that industrial action and other forms of action constitute, but as an adjunct to them that would expose more clearly the issues that are at stake for both staff and students. And of course, there's no shortage of literature on this kind of question. There's no shortage of literature on the state of the contemporary university under neoliberalism. And it covers the whole spectrum. And I thought there was an amusing contrast between the Vice-Chancellor of Melbourne University, Glyn Davis's recent Boyle lecture, The Republic of Learning, which is as about, in my opinion, as complacent and encomium to the status quo as yet. There's a stark contrast between that and this slightly less recent work of French sociology, which isn't called the Republic of Learning, it's called the Republic of Egos. And that's a sort of racy update of Bourdieu's classic Homo academicus. So there's no shortage of this kind of literature, but what there is, I think, a shortage of is actual discussion among colleagues, discussion between and among staff and students of the kinds of issues that might underlie the predicament that we're in today. And so that's the aim of the meeting. The format is going to be as follows. We're going to initiate a 50-minute discussion on this panel between ourselves. That will then be followed by a 40-minute discussion and commentary period with you in the audience. People sitting up the front here aren't presenting themselves in any way as experts, I don't think. So that second period is going to be an important part of the exchange of ideas. And what I might just do to get us going is simply to ask the speakers to introduce themselves briefly for a minute and say something about what they're doing here, what their stake in the issues is. We're yet to have John Kaye, the Greens member of the Legislative Council from the New South Wales Parliament, arrive. John is on his way and will no doubt be here at some point too. So I wonder, could we start with you, Hannah?
Yep. Do I have to deal with the microphone thing?
Yes. Yeah, you do. Thanks, Chen.
All right.
Yeah, we can take it out. Yeah, it might be better.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a little scarier. It's lovely to be here, and thanks for Noor and others for asking me to come and do this. So I've not long ago, and it's nice to see my friends in the here as well. Look, I've not long ago finished a PhD on the history of universities in Australia. So my stake in this is as somebody who has for some years been trying to think about how universities have gotten to this point. And I joked earlier that people always ask me, so where do you think we should blah, blah, blah? And I try to say, historians look that way, not that way, right? Because it's quite hard to always translate what you know about the past into the future. But I do what I do because I believe that we are confronted with a lot of really important challenges in higher education, and that it's our task as the community of scholars to confront those and to find a way forward. And so that's what I spend all of my time on.
Thanks, Alan. Maybe we'll just go down the line. So,
Hi, my name is Aleem Nizari, and I'm an international student here in Australia. And I'm also the president of the national peak body that represents 500,000 international students in Australia. The reason why we're here today is because Noor invited us to give an international student's perspective into some of the current situation that's happening with university funding, and also with the restructuring in the regulatory bodies that will be enforcing some of the higher education standards in the coming few months. So I'll just be giving my comments based on that and our involvement in that process. One of the things I would like to mention is for international students, something to do with university funding may not appear to be a direct impact on them, but however, we as a council do recognize that there are direct impacts on international students and on their education and their student experience while they're here, and that's our role to actually educate them as well about their issues so that they can raise and share the platform with the colleagues, with their domestic students, colleagues, and raise their concerns. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to come here and raise our concerns as well. So I'll pass it on now.
Hi, I'm the student. I'm also a bit of a student rebel, so I guess I'm a bit of a campus activist here at Sydney Uni. Are there any students here, just out of interest? Okay.
Student?
Yeah, it's good to know. A student of society. So I'm in my 5th year. I'm doing my honours in political economy, and I've been involved in a variety of sort of activist causes since I've begun here as a student, but it has been very noticeable to me in the last 2.5 years in particular that how education issues have become something that students are actually starting to fight around, both at Sydney Uni and more broadly across the country. So I guess I started out some of that with, just protests to prevent the political economy department here at Sydney Uni being merged into the government department. Last year, very significantly, people will know 340 job cuts announced at Sydney Uni, and there was a fantastic Student Staff United struggle to stop those. So I was involved in that, and more recently in mobilising student support for the staff industrial campaign. But more than student support, I guess actually trying to raise this as an education issue, that these questions are intimately linked, and sort of point out the common interests that students and staff have, so that it's seen as more than simply a support campaign and actually part of our education campaign as well. So that's me. I'm Erima.
Should we swap marks at this stage?
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe it's actually
Double effect.
Maybe.
We're just going to connect the wireless mic.
Connect this one is very easy for you to use.
Okay, there we go.
The mobile one.
I think that's okay now. That's good.
Is this working?
I think it's a recorder rather than an
Recorder, right? What can I say? I'm a sociologist. I've been working in what's now the Department of Sociology and Social Policy for a much longer time than I care to admit, but that means I have a sense of how much the place has changed over the years. I could speak up. Some of the things I'm interested in include the sociology of organisations and management. So I think there's, Nick's mentioned the vast literature that is around on the topic, which managers don't either have read, or perhaps they've actually read it too carefully and they're just applying. But that's a field of study that I'd like to kind of draw on to understand what's going on. The other thing I'm interested in is law. When I had my midlife crisis, instead of buying a red sports car, I did a law degree. I actually like reading legislation, rules and so on, and resolutions. I actually think the world belongs to people that do actually read the resolutions and the legislation. So I'd like to try and work through an understanding of the kind of broader constraints that have been placed on university about how they're governed. So the whole question of governance, I think, is really important. So they're the two things that I'd like to focus on.
And your name?
And my name, that's right. My name is Robert Dan Krieken.
And Robert is running for the Senate.
And I'm running for the Senate.
University Senate.
The University Senate.
Hi, my name's Peter John Chen. I'm a political scientist in the Department of Government and International Relations. I guess my interest here is I am of that group of Australians who are uniquely of a particular generation, and that is those Australians who came to university in that period where, between the 1970s, where 3 in 100 people went to university, and now where 25 in 100 go to university. So I was the first in my family to go to university, really, okay? And so, because university was not something that was automatic to me, that one would not automatically go. I didn't actually go to university to become an academic per se, because like most people, I had no academic role models to really draw upon. My parents were educated and interesting people, but they hadn't gone to university. So I guess my take is that I've always seen the role of the academic as really, in a sense, a public service role. And I don't have any answers to the questions that we have, but I think one of the things that we really do need to discuss is how the academic role can be much more focused on notions of public service. And so I have concerns with the Fordisation of the work of universities, in that they seem to be taking us further away from that kind of public service orientation. And I think people in a range of public enterprises feel this trend as well. So I don't think this is unique to our area. But I think that given the size of our sector in Australia, so the higher education sector in Australia is 2% of our GDP, it's very big. It is interesting how little attention is given, actually, to the significant changes that we've seen in this sector over the last, 15 to 20 years. And I said my name.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Peter. Well, those comments actually lead us into the sort of first topic that I want to raise today. And I think I'm going to pose an initial sort of question to Erima and Aleem, and that question is about the role of competition in the current university, because I think it's obvious that people who have anything to do with universities, whether as students or whether as staff members, are encouraged to construe the nature of their role in the institution as being predicated on competition. One competes for a job at a university, one competes for a place there, one is encouraged to compete with one's colleagues for a very small pot of research funds or prime teaching positions or whatever it might be. Competition is ubiquitous. So I wanted to start off by asking Aleem and Erima whether you think that this is something that shapes the student experience in particular of universities, or whether you think that there are perhaps other dimensions of university experience which might trump that as the most salient.
Well, it is competition. I think it is somehow integrated for a student's lifestyle, and I think for international students particularly, you have to look back to the choices that they make for example, that they will be pursuing a higher education degree overseas. So before that, they need to make a decision whether they have the resources for it, and the competition starts there, finding the resources. Competition among siblings. There's that sort of competition as well, especially in developing countries, where families have to decide which sibling will get the opportunity to go and study overseas. So it does make a very relevant point that if they do have that opportunity to study overseas, they will look for a better experience. But in terms of competition within a higher education degree, I suppose that becomes almost of irrelevance to students while they are studying in terms of grades and such things. That was more sort of a high school approach, I would say, in my personal opinion. And I think in universities and in your classes, you would compete to maybe come up with ideas, and that would be something that would improve your self-learning sort of area. But I think is that what I'm getting at? Yeah. So.